You know, one of the greatest discoveries a person can make is that they don't have to stay the same. You can wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and say, this version of me, he's not the final product. And in that single decision, life can begin to change. I often tell people, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Because when you get better, everything gets better. Your income, your health, your relationships, your confidence, all begin to rise to meet the new standard you've set for yourself. Now, imagine this. What if in just 1 week, you could become so disciplined, so focused, so full of energy and clarity that even your friends wouldn't recognize you? What if 7 days was enough to shock your system and remind yourself of what you're truly capable of? Everything begins with a decision. Every transformation, every breakthrough, every story of success starts at that single point when a person decides, enough is enough. I'm ready for change. Most people wait for circumstances to force them into change. They wait for pain, for loss, for pressure. But the truly successful ones don't wait for life to corner them. They decide right where they are that the current version of themselves is no longer sufficient for the life they want. The decision to become unrecognizable starts in the mind long before it shows up. In reality, you must first see the person you want to become before the world ever sees them. If you close your eyes right now, can you clearly see who that person is? Most people can't. They know they're tired of being stuck, but they haven't taken the time to define what their next level looks like. You can't hit a target you haven't identified. The mind needs a direction. It needs a picture to chase. That's why clarity is power. When you get crystal clear on who you want to be, how that person talks, walks, works, thinks, and feels, you give your mind a mission. Suddenly, your decisions begin to align with that image. You stop wasting time. You stop entertaining distractions. And you start filtering everything through the lens of that new identity. Jim Rohn used to say, success is something you attract by the person you become. You don't chase success. You become someone who naturally draws it in. That's why the question isn't, what do I need to do? But rather, who do I need to become? When you focus on the being, the doing follows effortlessly. The problem is, most people are busy trying to improve their results without improving themselves. They want a better life, but don't want to build a better character. You can't put new results into the same old mindset. The outer world is always a reflection of the inner one. So, when you decide who you want to become, don't just think about achievements. Think about character. Think about the habits, the principles, the values, the attitude that person would have. Would they procrastinate? Would they complain? Would they doubt themselves? Would they settle for average effort? Probably not. So, if that's the case, then neither should you. The first step toward becoming unrecognizable is to create an image of that future self so powerful that it pulls you forward every single day. When that vision becomes stronger than your excuses, transformation begins. Take some time to visualize your new identity in detail. See it as vividly as possible. What time does that version of you wake up? How do they spend their mornings? What kind of conversations do they have? How do they carry themselves in a room? What habits fill their day? How do they react to challenges? How do they treat people? The clearer your answers, the faster your transformation. The brain doesn't respond to vague goals. It responds to pictures, to emotions, to certainty. When your mind can see it, your body will start acting like it's already true. You can't build what you haven't imagined. The greatest mistake people make when trying to change is they start with action before identity. They start trying to do new things while thinking the same old thoughts. It's like putting new wine into old bottles. It never works. Real change sticks only when it's built on a new self concept. So before you take any step, spend time redefining who you are. You are not your past. You are not your failures. You are not your mistakes. Those were experiences, not identities. The moment you decide who you want to become, you start rewriting your story. This is the same principle that changes athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders. They all started by creating a mental image that was greater than their current reality. They rehearsed that image every day until it became real. They lived from the future instead of living from the past. That's what you must do if you want to change in 1 week. The change won't happen because of time. It will happen because of focus. When your focus is fixed on your new identity, every hour starts to serve that vision. You'll notice your energy shifting, your thoughts sharpening, and your confidence growing. The moment you define your future self, you give your mind permission to stop repeating the old patterns. You begin to act differently without forcing it. You start speaking differently without realizing it. That's the power of identity-based change. It flows naturally because it's rooted in who you believe yourself to be. Once you truly see yourself as the person you want to become, every decision that doesn't match that identity begins to feel uncomfortable. You'll start saying no to the things that pull you backward. Not because someone told you to, but because they simply don't fit anymore. This is how people reinvent themselves. Not by pretending, not by faking confidence, but by making a firm, conscious decision to design a new identity and live it. You can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction today. And when your direction changes, so does your destiny. That's why your first and most powerful step in becoming unrecognizable is to decide with absolute clarity who that new version of you is, and then refuse to settle for anything less. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And without that bridge, even the greatest dreams collapse before reaching the other side. You can have all the ambition in the world, all the inspiration and enthusiasm. But if you lack the discipline to translate those feelings into consistent action, nothing changes. Motivation can start the engine, but only discipline keeps the car moving when the road gets rough. It's easy to be inspired when the sun is shining and everything feels exciting, but discipline is what makes you keep walking even in the rain. Even when no one is watching, even when progress seems invisible. Jim Rohn often said, "We must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret." The difference is that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. Every day you make that choice to do what's necessary now or to live with the heavy burden of what could have been. The disciplined person doesn't always feel like doing it. They've simply trained themselves to act regardless of feelings. That's the real secret, doing it anyway. The successful person doesn't wait for the mood to strike. They rely on systems, not emotions. They build routines that hold them accountable when motivation fades. Discipline is not punishment. It's a form of self-respect. When you discipline yourself, you're saying, "I'm worth the effort. My goals matter enough to protect them from laziness and distraction." Discipline is love expressed through consistency. You can't claim to love your dreams and then neglect them daily. You prove your commitment by the structure you impose on yourself, the standards you uphold, and the promises you refuse to break. Discipline is the silent language of seriousness. The world takes you seriously when you take yourself seriously. You see, life doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to consistent effort. The person who wins is not necessarily the most talented or the smartest, but the one who shows up every single day, even on the days they don't feel like it. The disciplined person creates habits that turn struggle into second nature. They don't waste time debating whether they should act. The decision was already made long ago. When it's time to work, they work. When it's time to rest, they rest. Their life runs on principles, not moods. That's how progress becomes predictable. Imagine your goals as a fire. Inspiration can light it, but discipline keeps feeding it. Without wood, the flame dies quickly. Every small act of consistency is a log you throw onto the fire. Over time, the flame becomes stronger, hotter, unstoppable. Discipline compounds. The small actions that feel insignificant today become the reasons you are unstoppable tomorrow. The person who wakes up early one day doesn't transform, but the one who does it 7 days in a row starts to become unrecognizable. The rhythm of discipline reshapes your identity until success is no longer an act, but a habit. The truth is, discipline doesn't make life harder. It makes life easier in the long run. The undisciplined person suffers twice. Once when they avoid doing what they should, and again, when they face the consequences of that avoidance. The disciplined person feels temporary discomfort, but gains long-term freedom. When you master yourself, life begins to bend in your favor. You stop being pushed around by circumstances because you've built an inner strength that no challenge can shake. The power of discipline is that it gives you control. It's the quiet force that allows you to direct your life rather than react to it. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Discipline grows from small promises kept. Wake up when you said you would. Complete the task you said you'd start. Show up fully where you said you'd be. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the muscle of self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Discipline and self-trust are twins. One feeds the other. The more you keep your word, the more confident you become in your ability to handle anything. Confidence isn't something you find. It's something you earn through disciplined living. Every great achiever you admire is built on a foundation of discipline. Behind every shining moment of success are hundreds of unseen moments of quiet effort, of showing up when no one cared, of saying no when it was easier to say yes. Discipline is what keeps the musician practicing after midnight, the athlete running in the cold, the entrepreneur studying when others sleep. It's not glamorous, but it's sacred. Those hours of discipline are what separate the average from the extraordinary. If you want to become unrecognizable in 1 week, start by mastering discipline in that same time. For 7 days, make and keep small, clear promises to yourself. Structure your time. Cut distractions. Follow through on every single task you set, no matter how minor it seems. You'll notice that your confidence grows, your focus sharpens, your energy multiplies. The more disciplined you become, the lighter life feels, because you're no longer at war with yourself. Discipline aligns your actions with your goals, and that alignment is where transformation begins. Small daily habits create massive identity shifts, and the truth is, most people underestimate just how powerful small changes can be when done consistently. We tend to look for big breakthroughs, dramatic transformations, and overnight success stories. But the real magic of growth happens in the quiet moments, in the little actions that seem insignificant at first. Every habit you build, every decision you repeat, is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. The person you are right now is simply the sum of all your small daily choices up to this point. Change those choices, and you change your identity. Rohn once said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day." That's it. You don't need to reinvent your life overnight. You just need to start repeating small, meaningful actions until they become a natural part of who you are. You brush your teeth without thinking. You can also read, move, plan, and grow without resistance if you make them daily rituals. The challenge is that small habits are easy to do, but they're just as easy not to do. Missing one day doesn't seem like much. Skipping one workout, one chapter, one journal entry doesn't feel like failure. But those small moments are where identity is built or broken. Every time you follow through on a small habit, you send a message to your subconscious: I am the kind of person who does this. And the more you reinforce that belief, the stronger it becomes. Your habits shape your confidence, far more than any motivational speech ever could. When you act consistently, you begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, disciplined, and that self-image changes everything. You start thinking differently, feeling differently, and naturally doing the things that align with your new identity. Change starts as behavior, then turns into belief, and finally becomes character. Think about it. Someone who decides to walk for 10 minutes every day may not see immediate transformation. But after 7 days, they already feel different. After a month, their body begins to change. After 3 months, their mindset shifts. And by 6 months, they don't just have a habit, they have a new identity. They've become someone who values movement, energy, and discipline. It's not the walking itself that changes them, but the repeated proof that they can show up for themselves daily. That's how